So I've decided I'm very... sometimes people say, well, why haven't you answered my comments? Sometimes I get hundreds and hundreds of comments. This video here, Norway shreds Jehovah's Witnesses shunning policy with their own video. And then that's a video I did when it was assumed that Ccjw.org had lost. You know, even I had assumed they'd lost. Obviously, the decision's different, but these are so many really good comments on here. And yes, there's comments that I'm delusional. Perhaps I am. But I thought it deserved a proper video to try and respond and just say thank you for your comments. I appreciate the comments. I can't always respond, but I'm going to make an attempt to. There's so many quite sensible comments here that I just must acknowledge to you face to face through the wonders of this screen. So I've just come out of the garden. I've been meaning to do this video for a couple of days, and I just better get on with it. So, what a crock, says Tanya Torres. They only change when it affects their money. And I respect that view. The shunning policy, Silent Traveller says, the shunning policy has not changed. The option to say hello to a removed individual who arrives at the Kingdom Hall is a joke. I do understand that I believe that actually is a much wider application. That if I see anybody, or if you've got a relative who's disfellowshipped, you can contact them and welcome them to the meetings and show a friendliness. And if you're a family member, you can make contact. Obviously, you're going to avoid spiritual conversations. But let's see here. George Brown says, kudos to Norway for confronting the Watchtower Society with their own shunning video. The Watchtower Society can no longer deny responsibility for their shunning policy, nor can the elders call it loving discipline. They have no more excuses for the denial that shunning is harmful, particularly to children and youths. He says the writing is on the wall and the day of reckoning is coming for the Watchtower Society's governing body. Then he says, which is very nice, thank you for this latest update on Jehovah's Witnesses. So lots of respectful comments. You're just saying how you feel. And Ron Hansen, very nice comment by him, reminding me that we still have to keep God's household clean, and there must be a disciplinary arrangement. And he reminds me that Jehovah's Witnesses are going to be unpopular anyway throughout the world. So I reply to him, and thank you, Ron. So let's just add a couple of comments. Irreversible, the Natani. Irreversible damage has been done to some of us, and others have lost their lives in the process. What we do now, especially when they have declared there is no need to apologise for errors they commit, people must be allowed to make their own minds up. That's a very respectful comment. Thank you very much. Another one here, Berean Watchman, shunning equals not, love equals not from God. I actually agree with those statements. I don't believe that even Jesus shunned Satan. In the wilderness, he spoke to him, didn't he? Eventually, after a conversation, he said, go away, but he didn't shun him. So I don't like the word shun, actually. A lot of Bibles where the word shun appears in the New World Translation, quite a lot of Bibles use words like such avoid, which I think is sort of more of a correct term. It's only about 3 times in the scriptures anyway. Here it says, calling it removal. James Stowells, calling it removal as opposed to disfellowshipping really makes no difference on the actions. Fair point, fair point. Leslie Thomas, this is an interesting comment here. It says, I believe you're wrong about the adoption of voluntary shunning. Because I've obviously said it's changed from mandatory shunning to voluntary shunning. I hope you're wrong, because I don't want that to be the case. I genuinely believe that the brothers have changed it. But let's read on. This is subterfuge they use for court cases unless they come out and they clearly state in their study articles and assemblies that people are free to worship as they feel or not at all without any organisational consequences. The shunning practice is still recognised. And I acknowledge that generally speaking, that's the atmosphere remains the same. If they've genuinely changed the mandatory shunning and got rid of it, no one seems to have noticed, and there are apparently not really many changes. So, valid point, you have me there. I know the elders, there was an issue where one brother felt he was threatened by elders visiting him to help him on a shepherding visit, and then it looked like they were gathering evidence. He went on the phone to the Bethel, and the local Bethel here in Britain phoned the elders and they stopped. So maybe the policy is very slowly filtering down, and the elders backed off, and when they saw the brother again they gave him a hug and left the matter. So, but the point, let's read a few more points. So I believe that improvements are being made. Here we are. Apostate Paul Barnabas says, a true cult is identified by what happens to you when you leave. Vestland, he mentions my spelling. Actually, another nice lady mentions my spelling. His name. What's her name? I got the spelling wrong. What is her name? I can't find it now. But she says the same. She says you've spelt the wrong word. Nice lady. The trouble is there's so many here, I'm going to have to just not run. But she says that as well. I'm dyslexic, so I apologise about that. He says here, past master. Here's a comment. He says, Hui Irakois. I think that Jesus would have been shunned because of his interactions with certain people. That means by us. Someone wrote to me and said that an apostate, that some of the Jewish religious leaders were apostates, like the Pharisees. I wouldn't consider those apostates, and it'd be like meeting someone in Christendom or a church pastor or something. They're not apostates. They may be in an apostatized religion historically, but they're not directly apostates. Because an apostate is someone who's left Jehovah's Witnesses and is trying to draw people away to follow themselves. So most people who are leave or disfellowshipped is moral grounds. It's nothing to do with that. He says here, Pastor Master, he says, for someone who's been a witness for many years, this guy doesn't seem to understand how it actually works within the organisation. Of course, they've made several videos saying that shunning is now a conscience matter. But whatever they say, that something is but whenever they say that something is a conscience matter, they usually mean that it's still very much banned. If it's a conscience matter, the members, the rank and file, generally won't touch it. So shunning is still very much in effect. The language says that it's not, but it is very much is. That's how it works. Now that's a very good comment, and I think basically that's pretty much correct. I must admit. So that's how it actually works. Thanks for your enlightenment. G Max says these claims are not true about mandatory shunning. So I think they have got rid of mandatory shunning, but someone's so used to the way it is that it'll just carry on as it is. Which is very sad, isn't it? Hamish Last. He says, no, thank you for your video, and I've subscribed. It's a conscious decision to not to greet a disfellowship person. You still greet them, but minimise contact. It's still important until they're approved by the elders. They still have to grovel back. Every other non-cult never have felt the need to have a punishment for leaving or breaking these rules. That's why the JW religion has failed in Norway. It was token, and the persecutors know this. The same with allowing beards and pants for women as enforcing dress codes. It's a sign of a cult. All changes were clearly to increase the chances of success in Norway, which was to be a precedent across Europe in the future. It didn't work. Well, it did work actually, but there's no glee in that. I hope the changes are genuine. I genuinely believe that. But anyway, let's read on. Ccjw Filming. Okay, LLC. I don't know if you're really trying to be condescending, but this shunning has destroyed so many people's lives. I know a few personally who have committed suicide because of the fear of being excommunicated by the congregation. Now they soften the policy because they lost in Norway. They are not worried about how many lives it destroys, but are worried about losing the legal right to be called a religion and not a cult. One of the governing bodies said they don't have to apologise for it either. How is this love? Jesus would not approve of this. They got to prove they made a big mistake for many years and be actually sorry about it. Now, there's a couple more really good comments to add to this, and I acknowledge my life was affected for 10 years. I was living in a kind of nervous breakdown when I was disfellowshipped, and experienced the shunning experience, so I really can't say anything. Jennifer Cobb, what a lovely lady she is. She says this. Let's just go to a couple more. John Jones, wow, so delusional. Ed, if the governing body have ceased or changed the policy, they need to make this clear. It all seems very ambiguous. I have to agree. I do want them to make it clearer. One here says Yaka Ia. He says JW reformers are a special kind of strange. But what happened to Tony Morris? Well, I don't know, but other people seem to have an answer to that. Here's a lovely. Well, let's go back to this one here. Jennifer Cobb. Okay, I wish what you're saying is true. My father is still being denied being an elder because his elders think he might still have communication with me. My mother is threatened constantly with being disfellowshipped by the elders if they hear from anyone she communicates with. So I need you to know that in the United States, shunning is alive and strong as ever. The only concession made is a simple greeting if they see us at the Kingdom Hill. If what you're trying to say is true, then please post the article, video or anything that says that it's a matter of conscience so I can share it with my parents. The only thing that is a matter of conscience is whether the person chooses to say a simple greeting. So, there's another comment like this, Jennifer. I'm pleased that your mother keeps in contact with you, and there's nothing they can do about it. The elders, that is my understanding through someone's comments about the elders book back in 2019, was that they can't disfellowship someone for an existing witness for having seeing a disfellowship close relative regularly. They can't do anything about it. Yes, it will affect their privileges. So your mother may be denied auxiliary pioneer service, and it would affect your father's ability to reach out. But does he really want to reach out and join a body of elders and be involved in removing people now until this policy changes properly, which I pray will do so? I genuinely believe it will. Ed here. Yeah, I've already mentioned him. Is there anything else to say? No. Richard Howcroft says, he's right. The creator of this video, we all make mistakes, but the Watchtower does more mistakes than thinking. They can they can play God with the number of this cult, and they should change their name to BPD Watchtower. So I'm not sure what BPD are. I assume it's not very complimentary. Okay, Kevin Rose here. You mentioned here that I say that refusing blood transfusion is no longer mandatory. I don't believe it's mandatory anymore. I really don't. Okay, someone here says, Monkey Kojak Stein, people do not do things if they do not again benefit from it. What benefit do you get from defending Jehovah's Witnesses with these videos? Well, the same way that I believe that Jehovah is in charge of the organisation through his son Jesus, and he cares and loves the human race, and he is using this organisation. It's doing a lot of good things, especially with regards to the preaching work and having a community. Yes, it's doing this, and this is a massive mistake. And another person's comment is going to make a comment. I'm going to refer to that too. So I'm defending my faith, and that gives me. It's like if I meet someone on the ministry, in the house-to-house ministry, and they start being nasty to me and making allegations. If I can respectfully respond, I jolly well will. I will defend. I won't. If I think they just want an argument, then I will leave. I'll take my leave. Bill Waters says, if a doctor was to disclose to you that he was a disfellowship person, what would you do? Well, it wouldn't makes no difference to me. So, goer up, 1. Amazing, so close and yet so far. Why are you praying to God not to shun anymore? Hasn't it occurred to you that it doesn't matter whether you pray or not? This is a man-made evil. God is, as always, is absolutely nowhere. So, Jehovah, his son, it appears not to have done anything about it, but they will. You see, sometimes they take an awful lot of time sorting things out. Peter says, God is not slow, as you consider his patience. He wants all. So he's not slow, he's holding on. It's like the last days. People say, oh, they should have happened years ago. He waited 120 years for Noah in that world, and we haven't gone that far yet. So, Jehovah, and there are 9 billion people on this planet that need to start getting a message. There's no guarantee that people who die at Armageddon will experience the second death or annihilation, as some people say. There's a possibility that there'll be people raised as well from there, because the view has changed on both the flood as well. Those views have changed. This poor girl here called Chelsea, she says, I'm currently shunned right now and I'm not even baptised. And that's the cruelty of people. Personally shunning people is very cruel. It happens all the time in normal society. Obviously, there's lots of families that just don't communicate with each other. It's a shame if it's being done, isn't it, by Christians who are preaching from house to house. It's a real shame, because if you're saying that Christ loves you and then you shun your daughter or something, I think it's out of order. So my heart goes out to you, Chelsea, and I kind of understand a bit how you feel. Lonnie Stilly, okay, the whole organisation is built on a foundation of sand. As for making it clear about new policies that would require a public explanation and an apology, which they already said they don't feel they need to apologise even when they're wrong. Such a humble group of men, with an exclamation mark. So, I agree. A public explanation and an apology would be appropriate. JT Day 1 Bev. Shunning is loving, that's what the GB says. I've already done Coral Grog, I think. I thought that shunning was removed from the organisation to individuals as a personal decision. Most continue to shun, isn't that correct? Yes, it's correct. Sadly. Here's Hilary Jones about my spelling mistake. Thank you, Hilary. Vestland, would you agree that the JW religion is something you inherit? No. Jeff Noble, discipline is advocated in the Bible. 1 Corinthians 5:11 says that a brother in Christ is immoral. You don't say a greeting to him. 2 Timothy, Paul says that it would be like this in the last days and people would turn away from you. These scriptures are not followed in most churches. So there has to be a disciplinary policy, especially for Jehovah's Witnesses, because they're ministers. Those who are actually going from house to house, the qualifications for their behaviour are higher, rather like a church minister. I have actually made a video on this, but I've been nervous about releasing it, to be honest. That's on 1 Corinthians chapter 5 on the word remove. Eventually I'll have the courage to bring it out. Nabil Debayas says thank you, which I think is rather nice. Okay, here we go. Victor Benitez. I think, Victor, you're a lovely man. It says here, sir, he says, the leaders or governing body members should have to be explicit. Announce clearly that shunning is no longer a practice. Absolutely. If the members' rank or file are to be obedient to their directives, they can't give a directive. You can't mandatorily say you mustn't shun anymore. But obviously I would certainly encourage people to avoid, not to avoid too many people, but it's a personal decision. But yes, the leaders have failed to give clear instructions to that effect. I acknowledge that. Yes, there have been announcements, but the message is, yeah, okay. You're very. I love this next point. My heart goes out to you. Think of it: a daughter who has shunned a loving father or mother for decades, only to understand that now that she can have a life with them. I have a daughter there who understands quite well the rules of shunning, and she knows quite well that she is always welcome in my life. But she hasn't shown up at my door. I know she misses me tremendously, but she knows that she would be marked or worse if she was in my life. Sir, you speak nonsense. I really understand how you feel, because I've got two daughters that don't communicate with me, and they're Jehovah's Witnesses. So it's so hurtful, and it's just a shame. Put your daughter in contact with me. I shall say, just tell her to see you, and not to fear the elders. The only thing they can ever do to your daughter is to not let her auxiliary pioneer. Do the hours anyway. It's not a problem. Just do the ministry. You do it for Jehovah. Wouldn't it be nice for you to be hugging your daughter? I feel so much for you. Talk Ku Wum says, for the Watchtower to change their policies, it appears it'll have to happen through government mandate. Cultural changes will be difficult. Yes. Well, let's hope the cultural changes are happening. I believe they're happening. I just want them to hurry up. I'm like all people, I want to see them hurry up, and I don't like to see the hurt. I've experienced it myself, and you, dear people, I wish you the best. May Jehovah bless you. Try and remember to do what you can for Jehovah. If you can't have a connection to the organisation, do it for Jehovah. It's recognised now that right at the end, when the Great Tribulation is coming to its conclusion and Jesus is about to actually save the great crowd, that many, 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 many sheep-like ones that are not in Jehovah's organisation at the present time will join him. Even the governing body have made that point. So that is lovely. That's a thought that I had for a long time, because in the Red Sea, many joined the Israelites who were not Israelites. So you can still be one of the vast mixed company and get into the new world. If you can come back, that's lovely. Have less fear of man. If they start to threaten you, get on. The person I was helped, get on the phone to the local Bethel. I really believe that change is really afoot. Anyway, take care. This has dragged on and I apologise. And hopefully you'll continue to watch the videos. And I just express my love to you as my neighbours. Thank you and bye.